Being 5:15, I'd like to call the January 2nd Board of Public Works meeting to order. Any changes to the agenda, Robert?
No changes.
I'd be looking for a motion. Motion made by Bernie and seconded by Mr. Herder to adopt the agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Public input. Seeing none. Looking for approval for the December 4th meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Herder, second by Mr. Barrington to approve the December 4th meeting minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, wastewater treatment plant updates. Ben?
Oh, good afternoon. Let's see. So the beginning of December, we had a DNR inspection. Basically everything went all right. There's a couple things that I have to update. Some of our CMOM verbiage was a little vague, so I have to go a little more in depth on that. A lot of our verbiage is tied into the ordinance, and they're in the process of updating the ordinance. So I will be assisting with changing or fixing some of the issues that are in our ordinance right now. I also have to write a standard operating procedure on how we dose our ferric chloride into our system to make sure that we're not overdosing and hurting the environment. I did include everything from Roy when he did his inspection. Does anybody have any questions on his write-up? Okay. So the plant is beginning to have some more mechanical failures. We did lose another influent pump. We're hoping to get the one that we ordered last year installed next week. So that'll give us 3 pumps out of 4. But the third one the second one that's running right now is old, just like all the other ones that have failed. So we're really hoping that that lasts through spring when we get our 2 other replacements. Unfortunately, the lead times are over 6 months for a lot of this stuff. We also had 2 of our check valves that were installed in 1987 starting to not work properly. I did get a quote today. It's going to be $16,978 for 2 of the check valves to be installed. That's time and materials, and there's a 34-week lead time for those. So those will come in maybe by September. So I talked to Judy about that. We'll use our replacement fund budget for that. I still don't have any word as to when our digester coating meeting will happen. Everybody has been informed on the findings that they had. We just need to get everybody together and figure out when they're going to actually do this. Hopefully we can get it done before or have an idea on when they're going to come and try to lift that cover out before our slips falling in spring. Let's see. Robert and I have been discussing Wolf Creamery's pHs that have been coming to the plant. They have been extremely high. We met with them a couple weeks ago. They are in the process of putting in a pH neutralization program, which should benefit them. They hope to have everything in operation by February 1st. Let's see. We do have some end of year totals now that it's actually 2024. Last year, the outside sources that came in with holding septic and like grease and agricultural or dairy waste. We brought in 12,584,705 gallons of holding tank for a total of $110,116. Our septics, we brought in 3,277,058 gallons for $65,541. And the grease and dairy waste, we brought in 2,321,212 gallons for a grand total of $69,636. So roughly, we brought in $245,293 outside the city. And we're hoping once the digester is back in operation and have two digesters, we're hoping that last number for haul and waste for grease and stuff will go up significantly higher. Right now, we have to throttle what we're bringing in because we don't want to kill off the only digester we have running. Any questions so far on all this?
How do those figures compare to with, say, the last 5 years? How much
The
money?
last 3 years, it's roughly around 245, 250. So we're standard, basically status quo with what we've done in the past. At least the last 3 years, since we've been able to take in grease. But like I said, we have to limit what we're bringing in, just because too much it's almost like eating too much candy. It will mess up the digester. So, but I'm hoping that we could maybe get to the 300,000 mark next year. Yeah. Yes.
Nothing really on this report. I mean, you do such a great job on everything physically at that plant, and you know where the maintenance issues are gonna arise. But on my way here, it's happening a lot more in the United States, but another small municipal utility was cyber attacked from an Iranian group today.
Yep.
And I guess the thought popped in my head, how often would you work with Missy on that, or are you on your own independent
basically,
system?
Chad, Missy, and Keith would be the ones. He's got quite a bit of a firewall, so all of our operations go through SCADA, which we can access, but there's a portal with a lot of firewall protection to keep anybody from getting in that. And we're there every day, so if we start seeing something that's like, hey, this isn't right, and we do have a lot of alarms tied into some stuff, so if things get out of whack, we'll know right away, and then we'll come in, and if we can't override the SCADA, we'll have to just manually adjust things.
Yeah.
So
'Cause I know we planned for like adverse weather and stuff, but I've never really heard of any tabletop exercises on this kind of thing.
yeah,
Attack.
the DNR over the last couple of years has really started getting everybody to be like, hey, this is happening. Get your firewalls updated. Try to take care of any loose ends that might be in the communications area of the plant, so that way these things can't happen. Or, I mean, anything can be hacked, I suppose, but the way Keith has it.
That, and I can't remember, was it about a year ago, in the last year, through Civmec, our insurance company, we did have a company come in and try to hack, and, give us suggestions for how to improve our system. So we've done the testing of that. Obviously, you could probably test every day, and just things change and can do that. But I see emails going back and forth between Missy and Keith. Missy's on some network, some email listservs that give information about here's what's going on right now, here's what you got to look for, Microsoft updates, things like that. So they're active, they're constantly talking and communicating. Sure, they're doing that. So it's not just we've got a system and nobody looks at it. They look at it. Cool. Obviously, just because of the police department and everything else, it's tied into all those systems.
Thank you.
All right, and last but not least, starting yesterday, we are now under contract with Badger State Waste. This includes a price increase, and one of the people that benefit with using our system is Amro Wastewater. Was it 2020? We originally had a contract with them to take in their sludge. And I've been in contact with them and Robert has too, saying, because our price increase has gone up, we have to increase their costs to bring it into the city. So in your packet is the, new agreement for the city of Amro to bring in the sludge. That would go into effect in February if you guys agree to it. Do you guys have any questions on that contract?
Well, John, why don't you move into that as the official
Okay,
next item?
anything, I guess, any other questions before we move on for Ben for that last, the wastewater updates? Thanks, Ben.
Yep.
Next we'll move on to recommend a council agreement for wastewater services between the city of New London and the city of Amro. Ben?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions on the verbiage? Basically, the only thing that has changed is the dates and the cost.
The cost went from 2 cents a gallon to,
Yeah. 2.9, I believe.
yeah, 2.9 cents per gallon. They bring in roughly 600,000 gallons a year,
Yes.
somewhere in that area, so this would be an added cost to Amro of $4,000 to $5,000 annually, for hauling their sludge to us.
Can you just refresh everybody's memory what type of products they're bringing?
Basically, it's just sludge that they produce in their secondary process, similar to ours. And then they're bringing it in, we're injecting it straight into the digesters, so it's not going through the plant at all. So the digesters basically break down that sludge. We produce methane out of it so that we can power our boilers and heat the digesters. So we're getting a benefit out of taking it as well. And then basically the water that is broken down just goes into our effluent, and just the little bit of sludge that's produced goes into our storage tank, and then we haul it out to the fields. So it's really basically similar to what we're already doing.
Any other questions on that? Not, I'll look for a motion.
So.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Herder, seconded by Mr. Ritchie to approve and recommend a council agreement for wastewater services between the city of New London and the city of Amro. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Ben.
All right, thank you. Everybody have a good new year.
Thanks, Ben.
You as well, Ben.
Next thing would be to recommend a council agreement with McMahon Associates Incorporated for design services of Oshkosh Street. Robert?
So to get a jump start on the construction process for Oshkosh Street, slated for 2025, we'd like to do all the, everything that goes into the design aspect for what's gonna occur on Oshkosh, from not just the road reconstruction aspect, but the sanitary, stormwater, any sidewalk improvements, all the way down to the sanitary laterals. If we get an early start on this and get the engineering done up front in the, like, by July of 2024, we'll have a better idea of the actual overall design aspect of it, because with having that strange sanitary system with the dual mains in sections of that street, finding out if we can narrow that down to a single sanitary main, if there's room to do that, and all the sizing aspects that go into it, we'll have a good account in early spring, being that some of that does still receive some I&I. Maintain all those, or taken all the flow rates. So we know we're setting, all the infrastructure, accordingly. We don't have to oversize it right now. They're thinking that some of it's oversized. And if we're trying to combine two oversized sanitary aspects and get it into one single one, what will we actually need to try to help on cost savings down the road? This, this agreement would include, everything it takes for the design phase of engineering, up to the 100%. Set everything up as far as what we need for sanitary laterals. So we'd be able to actually get a head start and let the residents know who's up to code and who is not up to code, and what they're possibly looking at in 2025 as far as repairs, to bring their sanitary laterals up to code. It will provide the engineering documentation to start the assessment process by the first part of 2025, as well as all the bidding aspects for this whole project. Does anyone have any questions on this?
2 points to point out. Number one, if you remember at the last council meeting, there was a resolution signed to allow these charges to be included in the next bonding. So if you remember that this is setting the stage up for that. And then number two, this is one of the grants that we received, an LRIP grant for $2 million. So we got some nice grant money to help us with the Oshkosh Street project as well. So a couple 2 points of moving into this project.
Gives us a little advantage too when the bids go out, huh, to get,
Pardon me?
when the bids go out, to get, puts us at an
Yes.
advantage earlier. We
We're
get.
really hoping to be ready to roll by end of year this year. And that way we're first out there when companies are hungry and trying to secure those bids, to know that this size of a project will set them up for a good portion of their 25 season. And hopefully they'll be going after it pretty competitively.
Any other questions? If none, I guess I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make that.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, seconded by Mr. Herter to approve and recommend a council agreement with McMahon Associates Incorporated for design services of Oshkosh Street. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the director's report.
I have one service anniversary, Mary Mason, facility custodian, 1 year of service on January 22nd. I did put in the report, that because of the nice weather, we continued to have the street sweeper out trying to clean up as much gutter line as we could. Unfortunately, in your staff notes, that were sent out, late today, you'll notice that it's down for repair. The side shoe that runs next to the main broom, actually caught in a catch basin and was tweaked out of alignment, and trying to get that part to get it back online will take several weeks. So I don't know if we'll be that lucky with the weather holding out where we can continue, but they were out doing that as much as possible, as well as pothole filling. If the precipitation holds off, I already talked to Luke today about setting up a few areas for crack filling. If we find that temperatures are around freezing, and these cracks don't have much moisture in them, we should be able to get out there when everything's contracted and they're nice and wide, to where we can blow them out and get some filling done before we get any type of weather.
I have a question about the pothole filling. I noticed, actually this morning, there's some pretty deep potholes in the 600 and 700 block of South Pearl that need to be looked at.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody that's gone in the area of Mill Street and Wolford Corner has noticed that guardrail section was taken out by a vehicle. There's no accident report on file as far as the PD goes. We are waiting on guardrail section we get it from Wapaka County, and we'll get that replaced if you have any or anybody questioning that. And there has been some questions coming in regarding the barricading that's going across Southland Lane at Oshkosh Street. That section, part of the Redsloff development, the city has not taken over that section of roadway yet until it receives the surface layer of asphalt. So it's still Redsloff's property, and he was wondering what his options were, and I said for his benefit, if he didn't want to maintain that roadway or plow it in any shape or form, that it was best that he block it off to let motorists know that they can't get through there. That way he's not facing any potential liability. And that's about all I have on my notes. When I looked down the sheet and looked at future items, I am working on that large disposal service, so you can kind of expect that for next month. I went back and reviewed the videos that started right before I came on board with the city. So we can expect that to be on next month's agenda, because it's one I'd like to tackle and get off of there. So John doesn't have to keep repeating it.
Any other questions for Robert?
I was just wondering on that Retzlaff development, all the infrastructure is there for all the lots he's gonna sell for housing?
Yes,
Laterals, water, sewer, all that.
yes.
Do you know what the time frame he's looking at paving that road and start selling those lots?
I know he's up and running as far as trying to sell those, and I don't know if you've heard Chad, but
His focus was more on the apartment to get that done. I think once that gets done, now he's gonna set some focus on, the lots, because that's gonna be his next revenue source to help pay for the infrastructure and everything like that, so. But I know they were just a little bit behind on the apartments, and he wanted to get those done by the end of this year. I don't know if he's officially quite done yet with the apartments, but he was right around now, he was planning on being done with that, so.
And
I
I
would
heard-
foresee that.
I
he would
did
set
hear
his sights on
some
there.
conversation about him trying to get some spec homes rolling in there.
Yep.
And I was almost happy to see that he was really trying to get that paved this fall, and then ran behind. And being that those lots aren't in the stage of starting development, I would prefer it almost be in binder as long as possible to have that brunt of construction traffic on there until, it's partially developed before he puts that surface layer on there, so it's not getting abused so bad.
So you think there'll be construction of homes before the road is done?
Normally on a subdivision, that's what they do, because of your cement trucks and all the trucks, traffic
Mhm.
coming in, they bust the blacktop up. Then it's gonna cost the developer more money to replace it.
So you see a lot of them that have like a 50% occupancy before they put on the surface layer, that type of situation, but we'll see where he sits come next spring.
I don't know if there was a deadline that with the TID, we had to extend the deadline I didn't know if there was a deadline that we had in place that that road had to be turned over to the city.
Nope, cause the road and the single family lots are out of the TID. So we
Okay.
did that on purpose. The apartments were in the TID, so we're collecting the revenue, the increment, with the apartments now. And then the agreement was that he was going to put in the infrastructure and put the road in, which he's doing. And then the money from the increment from the apartments is going to help pay for some of that. So there isn't a time, I'd have to look back at the agreement. I think there's a timeline for we had a timeline for the apartments. Because we wanted to make sure that that was done at a certain time, so we collected the right amount of increment money for the TID, to support the TID district. I don't think we put a timeline per se for when the houses have to be all, and that's kind of a hard thing to say, to force somebody in 5 years to have all the houses sold with lots sold. But Mayor and I were just talking right now for London Acres, that's got the binder layer down right now. That one doesn't have the top mat either. So if you've been out in London Acres, you can see how the road's been developed. And I foresee the top, surface layer coming in the next couple of years now that a good chunk of those houses are developed in London Acres. So,
Wasn't that London Acres, he said he'd have so many houses in there by a certain time? Wasn't that part of the agreement?
Yep, that was with Ken, so I'd have to go back and look, but there was some type of stipulation.
Yeah.
Because the city financed the utilities to get to the development, he had to promise so much of the development, or so many per year or something like that,
So many lots are gonna be filled up.
to help, justify that the city spent the cost of bringing the utilities out there. So there was a development agreement for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that.
Anything else?
The downtown parking fee, we have that on the schedule. The agenda?
That will be on next month's as
Well,
well.
there's a lot of chatter about it currently, and I'd like to get the agenda so people can talk about it. I think we had a lady in the back up here.
So we already went through our future agenda items. Next, time of day for a meeting,
Will be the 5th at our regular 5:15.
sounds good. Thanks, Robert. Nothing else on the, we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, second by Mr. Herder for adjournment. Any other questions? Not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,